Hi, welcome back to my channel. I'm Jay, and this is the video I promised about the paper I used to print PDFs on. When I got my first PDF coloring books, I really struggled with getting the right paper, because I thought that there had to be, the perfect paper, and I couldn't just use any. And so I just got a big assortment of different papers that were available, just to try out and find the right one. And I think with with all the artists now selling their pictures digitally on Etsy, this is an even more important question, because there's so much wonderful art that you can't even get as a printed book. So I just want to talk a bit about what I've found out, what paper I use, and that all the agonizing I did wasn't even necessary. I have several different versions of paper, and for all that I have, I made this little card where I tried out all the mediums I had. Let's just go through what I have, and this might not be available for you in your country, or sometimes they just not on sale anymore. But as you'll see, it's actually not that important what you get. I'm still pretty sick, so again I apologize for any sniffling, coughing and sneezing. The first thing I have is this sketch book. This has white drawing paper. It's by Folia Bringmann. Was pretty cheap, and it has a pretty it's very smooth. It's 120 gram, and colored pencil work pretty well on it, and water-based mediums get sucked in medium quickly, so it's not really perfect for them. You can see that there's a pretty stark line, and after that I try to dissolve it again to the bottom, but you can see that it didn't move anymore, because it had already been sucked into the paper. I actually haven't used this to print on, but this seems to me a pretty good paper. As you can see, works pretty well with colored pencil. 120 gram is medium thickness. It's not much thicker than paper that is in your normal coloring book, so it might be a bit too thin for other people, but I found that if you print on, then it doesn't matter if it gets pushed, if something shows on the other side, right? Because that's important in a coloring book, but for a single-sided printout it isn't. So from a thickness standpoint, that would be okay for me. So this is the Folia Bringmann drawing paper. And when I went to just buy some selection, I just looked for something that said drawing paper. Then I got the idena Zeichenkarton. Again, it's basically drawing paper, but even it says drawing cardstock. This is 190 gram. So it is noticeably thicker, and 190-ish grams is the thickness that I would recommend for something. Around this, 200 gram, 180, around this weight. You can tell that I got a bit tired of trying out, but it works pretty nice. It seems pretty smooth. I think that's why I gave up on it. But as we will see, you know, just because it feels smooth doesn't mean that it's bad for colored pencil. And again, it has basically the same result for the Inktense. It just, you know, sucks up the water too quickly. But again, I think this is absolutely comparable to the other one. Then I have some transparent papier. This is basically like, I don't know the English word. I use this to protect pages, and you can also use it as a transfer paper. I originally planned to put this between each colored page, but this was pretty expensive, so I didn't do that. This is actually the color that I print out, or have printed out almost all of my pictures so far. This is the Brunnen Skizzenblock. It's a sketchpad and drawing card. This is how it looks like. This is 990 gram, so nice and thick. And when I tried this out, I even said that, you know, Inktense didn't work well, and the prisms, apparently I noticed that they were, you know, just smearing a bit, and I wasn't really happy, but and this really feels very, very smooth. You can barely see any texture, so I was a bit underwhelmed by it. But in actual use, this is super nice. This is a picture, one of the pictures I did. Almost all of the pictures that you see that I printed out are done on this paper. And it took all of it so nicely. The background is Neocolor. I mean, it did buckle a bit, but the Neocolor was nice and workable. I mean, it's not mixed media paper, so of course, you know, using water-based mediums on it will be more problematic than using, you know, paper made for it. But it doesn't suck up the paper as much, the water as quickly as you'd think, so it stays workable for quite a bit. And it took this is Pablo, this is Polychromos, and I think this is Prismacolor, and it took all of these pencils so nicely. So it's just an all-around good paper, and this is really, when I started searching for good paper for colored pencils, I thought it needed to have a texture, and that it needed to feel a bit rough, but as long as it doesn't feel, you know, very smooth, like plasticky smooth, it might actually work pretty okay, as you can see with this one. It has enough, you know, structure for colored pencil to take several layers, but not too much so that it takes too much and will always leave the structure of the paper showing. So I really like this paper. Again, this might not be available for you, this exact thing, but I can just recommend going for, you know, this weight, 190 gram, 200 gram, 180. It should go into most printers. Most printers should be able to deal with it because it isn't very thick. It's just, you know, a bit thicker than standard copy paper. It's not really, you know, cardstock. And as long as you go for drawing card or drawing paper, it should be fine. And this usually isn't, you know, very expensive. Just get a pad, maybe even an in-school supply or something, and then just, you know, try coloring on it. And you might be surprised. I certainly was. The first paper I actually bought was this very, very expensive Canson drawing cardstock, and it's 180 gram. It's by Canson. And when I bought this, you could already see in the preview that it was had a very rough texture, and so I thought it would be perfect. Let me see whether I can show you the texture. Yeah, I think you can see that it's pretty textured. You can see with the color pencil here. And I thought that would be perfect for color pencil, right? So I got this because I was planning on doing this picture as a gift for my partner. This is done on this paper with mostly luminance and some Prismacolor and some polychromis, I think, but mostly luminance. And I followed a tutorial by Shirley XLY, I think, for the little hedgehogs, and the original picture is I think in Nightfall by Maria Troll. Nightfall or Blomstermanlala, I'm not very sure. So I scanned it and copied it, and oh yeah, the background is pan pastel because my printer couldn't go as deep. And I mean, it turned out super nice, but it was a lot of work to get it to look like this because the texture of the paper just didn't want to go away, and it took a lot of work to actually get all of the white to not show anymore. So I actually think that a paper that hasn't that much of a texture, that is a bit smoother, of course not completely smooth, but a bit smoother, works better. Let me again try and see whether I can show you some detail. There, you can still see that even, you know, through a lot of work in that leaf here, if the camera decides to. Oh, let me try and do this manually. There. The sleeve still shows some texture. Didn't all go away. Same here and here, if you just look very closely. And that doesn't have to be a bad thing if that's something you're going for, but I personally prefer it if the end result is completely smooth and without any white showing. And you can see how it looks. You know, this is the paper I tried the pencils at. So if there's something, you know, you like how this looks, then of course, you know, go for it. But I prefer smoother paper. So this is the Canson drawing card, 180 gram. And this is the swatch card I made. And I noted therein that apparently it stays long enough to be able to work with, and I noted on other paper that it doesn't, even though this looks the same to me, so I don't know. And then I have mixed media paper, the Canson Mixed Media Imagine 200 gram. And this is 200 gram is really thick, and 180 is enough, I think, when this is really thick. And you can see that this works way better with water-based mediums. And it has a lot of texture, but not as much that color pencil doesn't work well. But it is pretty expensive. It's €8 for 50 pages. This is how it looks. And I tried out the Sakura Koi brush pens on here, and it did. If I went too often over it, the paper started pilling pretty quickly, so it's not perfect. But it does allow for to blend it out. The Albrecht Dürer worked pretty okay, as you can see. And this is where I tried, to just have a little skin, and this worked really, really nicely. I just did the outline, and then with a water brush just poured the color in. And for smaller pictures, I also have this in A5. And then the last paper that I own, I haven't tried yet, but I've seen other people use it to print PDFs on, is the Strathmore Toned Tan paper. And this already feels very nice. It's feels smooth, but not too smooth. It has some texture. I can really see how this could be good for color pencil. So all in all, I suppose in the end it's personal preference. I can recommend a paper that isn't too thick, because then you will get problems with your printer, but also not too thin, because it should be, you know, just nice thickness to work with. 180-190 gram should be absolutely fine. This 200 gram I almost think it's a bit too heavy, but this is mixed media, and if you lower weights, 180 or less, is super fine for colored pencil. If you want to use water-based media on it, it's better to use a bit heavier paper. That's why this is 200 gram, because it's meant for mixed media. And I can recommend just going for a box standard drawing pad, like this one with 190 gram. It's pretty smooth but has enough texture, and it, you know, if you do a water-based background, works nicely as well. I mean, don't expect it to work like watercolor paper would, but for just doing a simple background like this, it works super fine. It doesn't have to be expensive in any way, so just, you know, go to your nearest art store, just look at a couple of the drawing pads, and the only thing that I would recommend if you like this is, you know, this weight, 180, 190. That seems to me a good way to be able to work with. So really not as complicated as I thought it would be. I hope this quick video was helpful to you. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. And otherwise, we'll see you in the next video. Thank you and bye bye!